Next on JTV, we're happy to have from Rehmann, corporate investigator Bill Kowalski. Hey, Bill. How are you?
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Welcome to JTV. And one of the services that Rehmann provides is forensic accounting, corporate investigations. And to me, I was surprised that an accounting firm, a financial planning firm, provides that kind of a service.
We're fairly unique in the industry. This is much more common in Europe, but we are, as far as I know, the only accounting firm that offers the three branches with the traditional accounting, the wealth management, and then my group, a full-fledged corporate investigative group. There are many accounting groups that have maybe an internal investigator that does some background work and things, but to have a full group like this is fairly unique in the industry.
And your background is as an FBI agent?
That's correct. About 26 years with the FBI, all over the country. I ended up my career here in the great state of Michigan, where I was born and raised. So it was good to come back home and bring my kids back here when they were finishing up their schooling. So I was one of the lucky ones. I was blessed to have a career where I loved going to work every day, and there was something new and challenging every single day. And to think that when I retired from the FBI, I would have the same thing at Rehmann was beyond my expectations, and they've certainly fulfilled it. I work with some great people, and I love going to work every day still. So,
what areas did you work in the FBI?
My area of specialty was mostly counterintelligence and counterterrorism. I happened to be in New York during the height of the Cold War, and subsequent to that, I was in the Flint area when the Oklahoma City bombing happened. And if you recall, the Nichols family had a foothold in Michigan, if you will, and I've got involved in some of the counterterrorism investigations related to that, received additional training, and thereafter. Michigan demographically has a high concentration of Middle Eastern individuals, and there was always terrorism, not necessarily connections, but in theaters, say in Iraq or Afghanistan, military people would find phone numbers or addresses from Michigan people. Most of the time they were just relatives and contacts, but our role here at the JTT, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, was to ferret all that information out and make sure that there was no threats to the homeland. So I spent a lot of time doing that.
Seems like there is some parallels to what you do now with what you were doing with the FBI.
There are many parallels. We still, our main focus every day is investigations, solving. We consider ourselves now more problem solvers. We're much more proactive now. In the FBI, most of your career is spent responding to events, whether there's a crime occurred and you have to investigate to put people away. And now we're much more proactive. We help businesses in realizing where the risks might occur and try to avoid those or mitigate those risks as they go forward.
Well, you've even written a number of articles, including in your publication that Rehmann presents to the community, Business Wisdom Delivered, about clicking with caution. And I think so much of what we face in terms of electronic communication has potential for danger.
It is the fastest growing area of fraud, theft, and crime right now. And I speak specifically about identity theft. For example, we just completed a tax season, which is very busy for Rehmann, but is a matter of some stress for every individual. And the incidences of individuals filing their taxes and then getting a response from the IRS saying, someone's already filed your taxes for you, which is an indication that their identity was stolen sometime in the prior year, has risen exponentially. So my group has dealt with an inordinate number of complaints where people say, I filed my taxes, and then I find out from the IRS that someone else has already filed on my behalf. And that creates an identity theft, a potential fraud concern going forward for many years, and we help individuals walk through those problems.
It demonstrates really a high level of boldness. If you're going to, mess with someone, messing with the IRS is probably not the best place to start.
Well, you'd think that was the case, but the IRS, like everyone else, is a large governmental agency, and their mandate over the years has been to process these things as quickly as they can. So they were a couple of years lagging behind, and they've devoted a significant amount of resources and effort this year to getting ahead of the problem here too. But the whole problem of identity theft and clicking on the wrong links and malware in your system, again, is something we hear a lot about. We see the trends going up in terms of the digital fraud, and we spend a lot of time combating those crimes here. Your recent guest here talked about school districts. everything doing in today's digital world. When I look at school districts, and we counsel a lot of school districts as our client base, school districts and municipalities, one wrong click by an HR professional at a school district, which would let the bad guys in. You think about all that identity information a school district possesses in terms of social security account numbers and addresses and dates of birth.
Students and teachers.
Oh, it's immense. And if that information gets in the hands of bad people, there are so many provisions as far as how you have to notify everybody that here we were entrusted with protecting your information, and somebody clicked on the wrong link and that's now gone out there. It is obviously a crisis situation here, and there are certain things you have to do to respond to that. We're seeing more and more of that type. The malware, the bad guys are a little bit ahead of the good guys right now, and every time the good guys developed antivirus software to combat the bad stuff, the bad guys morph their viruses and they're trying to get around all the firewalls. So it's a constant battle, and everyone in the industry needs to remain ever vigilant.
It's just inconceivable that there is that much and there are that many people or organizations that they're spending their full time and energy in trying to, through computers, steal information or money.
Well, it's not so much, there are a large number of individuals. Most of the threat today still comes from Eastern Europe or Asia, and everybody envisions a basement room full of young kids on their computers trying to attack. But the way that the digital world is set up now, one person can create an algorithm and assign botnet computers all over the world to search for weaknesses. And it really is exponential in terms of how those attacks go forward. And again, one person clicks on the wrong link and all of a sudden they're in, and then they devote their attention on those ones that they get in on. And it used to be when someone's identity was stolen, law enforcement could go back and say, all right, where did you eat at a restaurant? Maybe your credit card was given up. Did you just fill out an application for a new mortgage or something? And we could narrow it down. Now there are so many, the bad guys, I use that term, they have so much identity information and people's information that they're stockpiling it, and they may not use it for years to come, or they may sell it to other
currency.
Bad guys. It really is currency. And there are people that steal identities and never have to put a plan into action to actually gain financially. They just sell it to other bad guys and they make their money that way as a retailer, if you will.
Jeez. Is there a difference between the people that are in the bad guys that are stealing to get money, and the bad guys that are getting into your computer just to create mischief?
There is a difference, but you should always understand that it's always about the money. Even if they get into your system. One of the new trends that we've seen, and the FBI has actually warned individuals about, is a new, and I don't mean to just scare everybody when I talk about these things, I'm always afraid of that as a skeptic, is a new event called ransomware, where bad individuals will get into a network of a small or mid-sized business, and then they'll encrypt all the data. And then they'll send the CEO or the CFO a message saying, if you want the keys to decrypt your information, you have to pay me. It's a simple extortion plan. And then you have to decide, do I try to de-encrypt it myself, or do I pay the bad guy so I can get my information back? And it's a challenge for these individuals, especially in today's world where business is 24/7, 365. If you're down for 2 or 3 days in the logistics business, or your inventory is lacking and things like that, it can really affect your bottom line. So
2 minutes even. People are so impatient. The website's done. 2 minutes.
Yeah. So
that exact same thing happened to one of our suppliers. We use a software program that provides our customer and database, and they were held up for ransom. They took their computer, they took their system down, and they demanded money in order to restore it.
And a lot of people are reluctant to inform law enforcement for fear that maybe their shareholders or somebody will see them as weak, or if that information gets out, they'll be a victim in the future. So that reluctance to inform law enforcement so it can be properly addressed just kind of feeds into the bad guy's ability to do it again and again and again here. So you want to get back up and running, so you say, let's get back up and running, and then we'll decide whether we'll tell the cops on it. And that's not always a good way to go here too. The law enforcement usually has answers and has the ability to trace these things, certainly much better than private business does.
All right, so we click on the wrong button. Can we assume certain things that, for one thing, the IRS will never communicate with us via email?
Well, the IRS will never ask for any personal information over email. And if you have, and I would point to the government, everyone has an opinion about the government. They do some things very well and some things not so well, but they have a couple of websites. The IRS actually has a website. If you have a fear that your identity's been stolen and someone else might file your income tax on your behalf, you can go to the irs.gov website. And you can file a piece of paper, an affidavit, if you will, and say, I want a PIN number. And then they will provide for you a PIN number where next year when you file your taxes, if it doesn't have the PIN number, you're not going to get it. So they've actually created new protections which are available for the public, it's a huge advance for them, so that's good. And then the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, runs a website. If your identity has been stolen, they actually lay out a number of steps you have to take to mitigate the damage and to ensure that nobody keeps getting credit cards in your name and keeps harming your good name.
I think people feel so small when something happens, being victimized by computer fraud or theft, because how do you even begin to trace and find a perpetrator when they could be anywhere in the world?
Yeah, that's exactly right here too. Law enforcement is really challenged in this area, and it takes cooperation among a number of different federal agencies, the local law enforcement, and our international partners, because there are large groups that devote a lot of money and attention to getting your personal information and stealing your money. So it is a very large effort that groups like the FBI and Secret Service are undertaking right now.
Now, being director of corporate investigations for Rehmann, are there companies that have no idea they've been compromised or robbed until you or your firm begins their tax preparation or their financial accounting?
Well, in many instances, individuals more don't know that their identity has been stolen until they file their income tax, and then they get a notification from the IRS saying, sorry, you're too late, somebody's filed, now we have to go through these remedial steps. But for businesses, if malware has been inserted into your network, normally there's some type of red flag that goes up here. Your system may be slower, your logins or passwords may not work because the bad guys are changing them. Your IT administrator may see outside remote individuals trying to access your system. So it's usually only a matter of time before somebody says, hey, we need to have somebody come in and take a look at this. There's something wrong here too. Because if they're in the business, what bad people do when they try to get into your business is learn all your logins and passwords so that they can get into your bank account so that they can steal money in one fell swoop. And we've seen that where individuals give up their login and password based on the malware being in the system, and hundreds or thousands of millions of dollars can walk out the door in a matter of seconds. It really is. Wire transactions go so quickly today, it is a matter of seconds. And then one of the things that we do is go back into these companies and then mitigate the damage and fix the system. One, you close the barn door so it's not going to happen again, and two, you work with the company just to make sure that they're educated so that it doesn't happen again.
Every company, Bill, has the weak link. There's going to be one person within every company that is technologically challenged, and it is going to have the weakest passwords and click on all the spam links and download all kinds of crud onto the computer. How do you, because you have to then train and prepare based on the weakest link in a company.
Yeah, and it's always the human link, unfortunately, is always the weakest link. There's always that temptation. There's always that one individual that's going to do things. There are two things in relation to that. One is education. Make sure your people know what they're supposed to do, and establish policies and procedures that, for instance, you have a policy when somebody signs on to your company that they have to fill out that I will not check my social media from remotely on the network, or I will not click on any of these links, or if I was given a phone or a laptop or an iPad as part of my company work here, I will only use it for business purposes and I won't be doing all these other things. Those policies really help a lot too. So that weak link is the thing. The second thing I would say is your IT administrators. And normally, I'm not a computer expert necessarily, but I'm a threat expert. I know where the threats are. And oftentimes we see the CEO or high-level individuals calling their IT administrator saying, I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to be out, I'm going to be from home, or I'm having trouble getting into my email. Do whatever you have to do to fix it to get me in. And a lot of times the reason it's more difficult is because the proper firewalls are up there. So when we see IT administrators lowering the firewalls, lowering the security to make it easier for individuals within the company to have that access that they require, or they think that they require, that's when the bad guys get in. And if they're not updating their security and their firewalls on a regular basis here, that's when we see the bad guys just wait for that moment when they can get in, and then they punch through the wall, and that's when we see problems.
Well, you can get insurance to protect from theft from your car or your home, but can you have insurance to protect yourself from cyber threat?
You most certainly can, and we highly recommend it. Every time that we go into a company and mitigate a damage post-incident, one of the things we always counsel them on is to get cyber insurance. And the insurance industry will tell you this is also a very quickly growing field. Purchasing cyber insurance is not very expensive. We've actually teamed up with AIG. We do a lot of work with them. They were one of the leaders in the industry in creating cyber policies. And for whatever the premium is, depending on the size of the business and how many devices you have, it's well worth it. Because if you have an event and you have to call companies like ours, or law enforcement comes in, you have to mitigate the damage, and you're down for, like you say, 2 or 3 days, the cost of doing business is exorbitant, and not having that insurance really hurts you. So we're going to see more and more of that cyber insurance.
So this stuff changes all the time. Is there a way that we can get alerted to the latest spam or threat?
Well, there are many sites that you can go to, and the FBI publishes a site on the FBI.gov site where they will alert individuals to the latest scam or the latest morphing of prior viruses. So you can go on the FBI.gov site, and they will provide that information. And there are also some in-state sites that you can do that too, and you can stay alert. Quite frankly, if you read the paper every day, read the paper online, I guess, you will see the latest story of some incident that's occurred, and that's educational in itself, when it'll explain somebody did this and that's why they get in. And we're seeing that a lot now in the social media realm, and with these, I don't even call them cell phone anymore, mobile devices. Mm-hmm. There are new ways for the bad guys to get in these devices, learn your contact lists, and then get in and create damage that way also.
I know people can find out more by visiting your website, which is Rehmann.com, and signing up for a newsletter which has more details on this particular topic.
That's exactly right, Bart, and we will. Anybody wants to call and ask questions here, I have a tendency to talk too much, so I'll certainly walk them through any of the problems they may have.
Great. We appreciate you being here today.
It's my pleasure, Bart. I appreciate it very much. You do a good service.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
The Director of Corporate Investigation Services at Rehmann, and a former FBI agent and lead investigator for Rehmann, Bill Kowalski.
Thank you.